A few years ago, two buddies and I were driving to a poker tournament a few states away. It was about a 3-hour trip from where we lived, and we figured we'd make a weekend of it. Play some cards, maybe drink a little bit, unwind, that kind of stuff. The driver was my friend Mike, and our buddy Jason was riding shotgun. I was in the back with a small cooler and our overnight bags. We were about an hour away into the drive, mostly 2-lane highways, cutting through a stretch of nothing but trees and fields. There wasn't much traffic, just the occasional truck or someone going the opposite direction. The music was on, the windows were cracked, and everything felt pretty relaxed, until we passed a hitchhiker. Mike started slowing down. I looked up from my phone and saw the guy in the rear view, thumb out, walking with this weird kind of limp. I immediately said, "Dude, what are you doing?" "I'm gonna pick him up," Mike said, like it was the most normal thing in the world. I was caught off guard. "What? Are you serious? You don't know this guy?" Mike just shrugged. "I pick up hitchhikers all the time. It's not a big deal." Jason did not say much, which kind of surprised me, but I figured maybe he'd done it before too. I sat back, annoyed, and watched this guy approach the car. To me, he looked to be in his 40s. He had dirty jeans, a faded black t-shirt, a big beard, sunburnt skin. What really stood out was the bag he was carrying. It looked like a giant diaper bag, blue with cartoon whales on it. Was too clean for how dirty this guy was. He was clutching it tight against his chest like it was the most important thing this guy owned in the world. Mike rolls down the window and says, "Where you headed?" The guy says, "Ridgeport," which was the same city we were going to for the tournament. It was at least another 90-minute drive. Mike goes, "Alright, what's in the bag?" The guy tenses up and says, "None of your fucking business." That snapped all of us out of whatever casual vibe we had going on. Mike and Jason both looked at each other, and I leaned forward from the back seat like, "Wait, what did he say?" Mike says again, calm but firm, "Look man, I don't care what you got going on, but if I'm gonna let you in my car, I need to know what's in the bag. I'm not risking getting pulled over with a stranger and a mystery bag in the back seat." The guy just stares at us for a second, then repeats himself, "None of your fucking business." Now, there's this weird silence. He's standing right next to the car, and I'm realizing if he gets in, he's sitting right next to me. I had this gut feeling I couldn't shake. Not fear exactly, but serious unease. Mike asks one more time, "I'm giving you one more chance, man. What's in the bag?" And the guy leans in, a little closer, and says again, louder this time, "None of your fucking business." And that was it. Jason suddenly reaches out through the open window, grabs the strap of bag, yanks it through, and yells, "Go, go, go." Mike floors it. I look back and the guys are running after us, arms flailing, screaming stuff that we couldn't make out. He gave up chasing after about 10 seconds, but I swear he was still yelling even as we disappeared down the road. Once we were a good mile or two away, Mike pulls off into this rest area. Nobody says anything for a second. Then we all look at the bag. It's just sitting there on the floor between Jason's feet. He's breathing heavy, like he's coming down from an adrenaline rush. Mike turns off the car and says, "I don't know if we should open it." Jason goes, "You're kidding, right?" He unzips the bag, slowly. Inside were a few shirts, a bottle of water, and some snacks. But the bottom of the bag had a small zippered compartment. Jason opens that too. That's when it got even weirder. Inside were two things: a bunch of newspaper clippings, all crime related, missing persons, unsolved murders, that kind of stuff, and a cheap digital camera with dead batteries in it. We did not mess with the camera. We zipped the bag back up, put it in the dumpster at the rest area, and got back in the car. Nobody really talked for the rest of the drive. I think what freaked us out wasn't just how hostile the guy was, or the creepy stuff in the bag. It was the realization that he wanted to bring it with him, wherever he was going, and whatever was in it, he did not want anyone else to know. We still talk about that hitchhiker sometimes, usually when we're all drinking, but none of us pick up hitchhikers anymore. Ever. Not after that. I grew up on Oahu in the 1980s. I was 15 at the time, living in a small town on the windward side of the island. Back then, there were no cell phones, no internet, no way to just shoot someone a text if plans changed. One Saturday, my buddies all made a last-minute decision to head to Sandy's for the day. I was supposed to go with them, but they left without me. Some kind of mix-up, I guess. I found out they were already gone when I showed up at one of their houses. So I figured, screw it, I'd just hitch there. I grabbed my board and started walking toward the highway with my thumb out. I probably looked like your average local kid, barefoot, board under one arm, hoping someone decent would pick me up. But no one was stopping. Not unusual, I get it. I think the board actually worked against me. It took up space, made it an inconvenience. After maybe 40 minutes in the sun, this beat-up silver Datsun pickup finally pulled over. The windows were tinted, but cracked open, and I heard a woman's voice say, "Hop in, I can take you down that way." I ran over and threw my board in the back, then climbed in. She was maybe in her late 40s, long dark hair pulled back in a braid. I remember she had noticeable burn scars on her chest and neck, like from a fire or something. She was wearing a tank top, so they were hard to miss, but she had a calm, almost cheerful vibe about herself. The drive started off normal enough. She asked me my name, where I was headed, the usual stuff. I told her I was going to meet my friends at the beach. She said she used to surf when she was younger, but she had to stop after the accident. She did not go into detail. Then the conversation took a weird turn. She started asking me if I ate meat, and whether I combined starches with proteins. I said I didn't really think about it. She told me it was dangerous to mix certain foods, that it could create toxins in the gut and lead to diseases. I nodded politely, not really sure what to say. She wasn't rude or threatening, just intense. At one point she put her hand on my knee and said, "You have a good energy. You're very open." That made me uncomfortable, but I just kind of laughed it off. Anyway, she dropped me off right at the beach and wished me a good day. I said thanks and ran off to find my friends. I did not think too much of it, just chalked it up to a weird ride. But the story does not end there. About 4 hours later, we were all packing up to leave. I was walking back toward the road when I saw that same Datsun parked in the lot. She was leaning against it, like she'd been waiting. She smiled and waved at me. I walked over, and she handed me a small folded pamphlet. It was this weird photocopied thing about food combining for health and harmony. She told me it changed her life, and could change mine too. She said she put her phone number inside it in case I had any questions, or wanted to talk more about it. Then she left. That was weird enough, but it gets worse. Fast forward a few months. It's the middle of the school year. I'm sitting in English class when the principal comes in and says our teacher is out sick and we've got a sub. Guess who walks in? Yep, that Datsun lady. She looked a little bit more cleaned up, nicer clothes, some light makeup, but I recognized her instantly, and so did she. She smiled the second she saw me and said, "Oh, I know you. The surfer boy who doesn't combine his beans and rice." The whole class laughed at me. I did too, but I felt like my stomach dropped. She called on me a lot that day, kept asking me to read passages and answer questions. Every time she looked at me, she held eye contact for just a little too long. After class, she pulled me aside and asked if I had read the pamphlet. I lied and said I did. She seemed pleased and said, "That's good. You're still young. It's not too late for you." She subbed maybe 3 or 4 more times that semester. Every time she was there, she made a point to talk to me. She even brought me another pamphlet once, this one about breath work and something called cellular memory. Eventually, she stopped showing up. I never saw her again after that school year, but I never forgot her. I kept the pamphlets for years, stuffed them in the back of a drawer. I finally threw them out when I moved out after high school. I still wonder sometimes what her story was. She wasn't a mean person. She did not do anything illegal to me, but she had this weird energy, like she picked me out for something. If she hadn't been burned, or if she didn't talk about food like it was a religion, maybe it would have just been a normal ride to the beach. But something about her still sticks with me. 30 years later, I still remember her name, her voice, and that creepy smile in the school hallway. I was hitchhiking across the US a few years back, somewhere in South Dakota, or maybe Montana. I honestly can't remember the exact spot. I'd been traveling for days, and the landscape had started to blur together. What I do remember is that it was pitch dark, the rain was coming down hard, and I hadn't seen another car in over an hour. When I saw headlights of an old pickup truck coming down the road, I was relieved more than anything. I did not care who it was. I just wanted out of the rain. The truck slowed down and pulled over. The passenger door opened, and a woman hopped out and gestured for me to climb in. I got into the middle seat, and she got back in, closing the door behind me. The man driving was probably in his late 40s, scruffy beard, wore a trucker hat, and smelled faintly of tobacco. The woman seemed a bit younger. They both had thick rural American accents and big smiles. Honestly, they seemed friendly at first. They asked me the basic stuff, where I was from, where I was headed. They got a kick out of my British accent, kept joking that I picked the wrong part of the country to explore. I laughed along with them and tried to stay polite, even though something already felt off. I can't really explain why. Maybe it was just the vibe, or maybe I was tired and on edge. After 10 minutes or so, the tone shifted. The guy kept looking over at me and saying things like, "You know, it's real dangerous to be out on these roads alone at night. People go missing out here." The first time he said it, I laughed nervously and said something like, "Yeah, I'm starting to figure that out." But he kept saying it, in different ways though. "You're lucky we came along," or "Not everyone out here is going to be as nice as us." Stuff like that. Meanwhile, the woman beside me started getting handsy. At first I thought maybe she was just brushing against me by accident, but then her hand stayed on my thigh a little too long. I shifted slightly. She laughed and made a joke I didn't catch, then did it again, this time moving her hand up toward my crotch. I froze. I looked over at the driver, hoping he hadn't noticed, but he just kept grinning at the road. I tried to laugh it off, said something like, "Alright, I think I'll be getting out soon." But we were in the middle of nowhere. There was no lights outside, no exit signs, just endless black and the sound of the rain on the windshield. The woman leaned in closer, and I swear, her hand was fully on me at that point. I panicked. I've only had one panic attack in my life, and this was it. My heart started hammering, and my vision narrowed. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I was boxed in between these two strangers in a moving truck, hours from anything familiar, and every instinct in me was screaming to get out. I didn't say anything. I just acted. I started reaching for the door handle and pulling my backpack from the floor. The guy shouted, "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" and started slowing down. But I already opened the door. The truck was still rolling, maybe 10 or 15 miles an hour, but I didn't care. I jumped. I hit the ground hard, rolled a bit, and landed face down in the wet grass off the shoulder. My jeans tore at the knee, and I had mud all over my chest and face. But I was out. I scrambled to my feet and ran a few yards off the road, crouching behind some brush while they stopped. They yelled a bunch of stuff out the window, mostly insults. I remember the guy yelling, "You dumbass, if the cold don't kill you, a bear will," and the woman laughing hysterically. After a minute or two, they drove off. I stayed hidden for a while, just to be sure they weren't coming back. I was soaked and shivering, and I did not even know which direction I was facing. I knew staying on the road made me visible if they looped back, so I cut through a patch of trees until I felt confident they were gone. At that point, I'd figured I'd just follow the road on foot until I found something. The cold was starting to feel less like discomfort and more like danger. My fingers were numb, and I couldn't stop shivering. I did not see another car, but after walking what must have been a couple of miles, I saw some lights in the distance. It was a little diner, one of those 24-hour places that looked like it had been updated since the 60s. A guy was locking up, but I guess I looked pathetic enough that he let me in and poured me a cup of coffee, sat me by the heater, and let me warm up. He did not ask me many questions. That night has always stuck with me. People always assume the danger is from the wilderness, from animals, or the cold. But that night, while I was hitchhiking, the scariest thing out there had two smiling faces and a pickup truck.